Great job, Akbar Baja Biamila. Coming up, more Freddie and Harry on ESPN Radio.
Life is full of choices, some big, some small. And when you choose an H&R Block Tax Pro, you're choosing the largest network of tax expertise to be in your corner. For when your big ambitions need help with the small details. For when your six figures come from 6 different places. For when your gaming stream becomes your revenue stream. For when your business's year one needs 70 years of tax know-how. At H&R Block, we've seen it all, and we're here to help you make the most out of your money for life outside the box. Get started at hrblock.com.
Time is valuable. That's why Lowe's Blueprint Takeoffs turn blueprints into quotes faster. Bring us your plans, and we'll generate itemized material lists to make quoting easier so you can get back to building. Plus, at the Lowe's Pro Desk, you get access to thousands of building materials not sold in store. And when your order's ready, we'll deliver everything to the job site. Improving is easy at Lowe's.
Your forecast brought to you by VTRN meteorologist Matt Ferguson.
For your Tuesday afternoon, it is partly to mostly cloudy and chilly with highs in the upper 30s. Tonight, mostly cloudy, some light rain or snow showers possible with lows falling into the upper 20s. Scattered rain showers or snow showers on Wednesday, but little to no accumulation expected. I'm VTRN meteorologist Matt Ferguson.
I take care of the kids. And I take care of my dad. I take care of things at work. The groceries, the cleanups, the meltdowns, the doctor's visits, the family events, mealtimes, bedtimes. I take care of all the things everyone else needs. But I haven't made time to take care of what I need.
Family caregivers are often overloaded. It can feel overwhelming and exhausting. It's no surprise that millions of caregivers experience symptoms of anxiety and depression every year. But help is available because there may only be one you, but you don't have to do it alone. Head to mentalhealthcareworks.org. That's mentalhealthcareworks.org to learn how to get the support you deserve, because mental health care works when you make the call. If you're experiencing a mental health crisis or thoughts of suicide, dial 988, a message from the American Psychiatric Association Foundation.
Did you know you might be part of the 75% of Americans who think they waste less food than they actually do? Americans toss out more than $382 billion worth of food, costing an average family of 4 nearly $3,000 annually, and costing our planet even more in wasted resources. But did you also know nearly half of all food waste occurs at the household level? Which means there's a lot we can do to reduce all this waste, to help your wallet and the planet. Eating leftovers is great, but things like freezing food that you can't eat right away, donating surplus food within your community, and better understanding food date labels can have an even bigger impact. To learn more, visit World Wildlife Fund at wwf.earth/food waste and spread the word that food should never be trash.
UVA coach Ryan Oden recently joined the Fast Lane to talk about how his team will look different from a Tony Bennett-led team.
It is going to look different in JPJ. Shots are going to go up quicker. It's just the way that we play. We're going to crash the offensive glass. That's going to look a little bit different. It's not to say that coaches' teams didn't crash. They did, but they had a very specific way of doing it that's different from the way that we'll do it. I think it's going to be fun for the fans to see a new style in here. And again, goal is winning. And so whatever we have to do to make sure that is the number one important thing, we're going to do that.
Listen to the Fast Lane weekday afternoons 5 to 6 p.m. on VTRN Sports, 93.3 FM, 1320 a.m., the VTRN Sports app, and open your smart speaker. Ask VTRN Sports.
You're listening to WVGM AM and FM Lynchburg, now powered by ESPN Radio and streaming on the VTRN Sports app.
Get more on the Sheeler Motor Mile, your trusted dealer serving Southwest Virginia and surrounding areas for over 50 years. With more selection, more value, and more finance options. Plus, your trade is worth more. Shop local and save more with straightforward pricing, plus exceptional service and selection. Your search ends at the Motor Mile. Choose from over 900 quality pre-owned vehicles, plus a massive selection of new car brands in Southwest Virginia. Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, Subaru, Kia, Chevrolet, Mitsubishi, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, and now Buick. Plus, the used car superstore. 12 new car brands, 900 used vehicles, one amazing buying experience. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got more than any other dealer in the area. The Sheeler Motor Mile delivers choices. Here's the difference. Sheeler owns the finance company and makes getting approved for credit simple and easy on the Motor Mile. Flexible financing options for every budget to get you on the road fast. Get more on the Sheeler Motor Mile with a certified friendly staff and no games, no gimmicks. The Sheeler Motor Mile, now in Christiansburg, Radford, and Pulaski. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com.
Hey there, Jane Lynch here. You want to hear something funny? Too bad. You want to hear something uplifting that will inspire you? Good. Because today, I want to talk to you about Direct Relief, a humanitarian organization that does seriously good work when it counts. Fires, hurricanes, earthquakes. When disaster strikes, Direct Relief immediately shows up with medicines, medical supplies, and everything doctors and nurses need to save lives. Let's ship her out! Every day across the United States and around the world, they're making an enormous difference. If someone needs help, Direct Relief helps. No politics, no red tape. Hey, what you doing over there?
Oh, I'm packing insulin for kids with diabetes.
See, every box here is literally a lifeline for someone in critical need. So check them out at directrelief.org and donate if you can. You might just bring a smile to someone's face.
The holiday season may have passed, but the deals at InsaneRadioDeals.com, they're everlasting, especially when it comes to your favorite food joints in the Lynchburg area, like 801 Raw Bar and Oliver's on Rivermont, the Caribbean Jerk Pot, Yamada, the Yard on 5th Street, Ballard Brewing, and Downtown Cairo. $50 gift cards for only $37.50. Deals that you can only get at InsaneRadioDeals.com. So start your New Year's and your taste buds off right with these local food joints.
Our listeners depend on us for traffic, weather, news, and sports. But unless Washington acts, big tech companies could shut us up and shut us down. Big tech takes advantage of outdated federal regulations that could put us out of business. It's wrong. Text radio to 39179 to tell Washington to modernize decades-old restrictions on local radio and TV stations before big tech makes us disappear. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Thank you. I don't need to be first. Whoa.
You're stepping into
it's me.
RN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM, Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
I am thankful to God for fill in the blank. We used to do those exercises back in the day at church. If that's not your thing, you may not be familiar with them. If you've had people, and again, get religious for a second here in the fast lane.
Time to take a detour in the fast lane.
As a Christian, one of my pet peeves is when people have overbearingly and maybe inappropriately not practiced what they preach. And we're all sinners. I'm not talking about that reality. But when it comes to discussing religion and then trying to impose it on other people, even though you don't really try your best to live it out every single day. Trying is one thing. Obviously, we all fail to execute it. That's just part of reality. And only God knows your intentions. But we used to have the I am thankful to God for. And in my family was often orchestrated by people where we were kind of scratching our heads going, really, should you be the one doing the I am thankful to God for? Because a lot of times it was done by I am thankful to God for, except when the adversity hits me, I'm not so thankful. And again, we all have our challenges with it. As you've noticed in the last week and a half, snow days, we'll have our 8th consecutive one for Lynchburg City schools, folks, and some of the surrounding counties. Others are back to school in different capacities. And I am thankful to God, in all seriousness, that I've got kids at age 7 who love to learn. We're in a spot where I can take some time out of my day doing sales and prep for the fast lane. And it's a lot to do all that, but to do some work with them on education and then speaking with their teachers and keeping that mental engagement and connection going. Again, it's a lot. I don't believe in hiding and trying to be perfect in front of your kids. I am more of the let's just lay it all out and show them exactly what it's like. Try to be good, but that way they understand what awaits them in the real world. I bring all that up to say it's a process over everything else, and it can be flawed at times. And there's often a world in our life where process over results. And people use that because they don't want accountability for the results. Like, let's be real. At some point, you need a process that still generates results. And where we're going with all this, and you may be going, what in the world, as we come back into the fast lane from the potential kind of detour?
After Ed's potentially unnecessary detour, let's get back on the road in the fast lane.
Is that ultimately for like educating your children, for example, during snow days, it's only a fraction of their educational experience. But it's the process of them being mentally engaged, still doing some work. Our kids are creative. We have times for and times not for screen usage in the house. When I'm around, I can kind of run it the way that I prefer. I am not a no screen guy, but I'm a limitation on vices guy. Screens, sweets. For me, sports betting, maybe giving that one up for Lent. Everybody has their potential, you could call it weak spots, but areas where the flesh can take over, and we have to be judicious about our level of self-control or lack thereof. And some people are blessed with more self-control in certain areas than others. It's just how God made us. Not fair, but that's reality. I bring all that up to say, ultimately, there is still a result in mind you're trying to reach. Where we're going in the fast lane is that when you look at the NFL and the coaching hiring process and what we've seen, almost a third of the NFL had coaching vacancies this offseason. A couple of them were not as expected. Buffalo firing Sean McDermott, kind of gained steam toward the NFL playoffs, but I don't know if anyone thought that it was actually going to happen, and it sure seems like it was on a whim. And then Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh, and I bumped into a Pittsburgh fan today. They don't pay, so I don't mention the business name, but she's a fantastic person, friend of ours, and met up with her today. And it was right at the end of the meeting, she ran back out and asked me for my thoughts on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm like, let's think about this. To quote my friend Mark, who is a Steelers fan, he said, quote, we had Chuck Noll, we had Bill Cowher, we had Mike Tomlin, and Mike McCarthy? Question mark. Kind of said in skepticism. I understand that. My bigger issue, though, is when I look at the NFL, it is involving the Rooney Rule. And I love the intent of the Rooney Rule. But I think a lot of this is less about the fact that it is racist NFL owners and they are anti-hiring African Americans. I think it's less about that. And it's more about the fact that they don't step out of their comfort zone. They love what's trendy, hot, and sexy, if you will. And they like things they believe they can sell to their fan base. Think about Pittsburgh when they hired Mike Tomlin. And again, we can hold two thoughts in our heads here. I think he was great during the majority of his time in Pittsburgh. I think you can look back and say, not very many people could have kept it all together with Big Ben, Le'Veon Bell, and Antonio Brown, and all the shenanigans that unfolded there. Not many people could have made a couple of Super Bowls and won one of them. Ironically, the one he lost is to the new current Pittsburgh Steelers head coach, Mike McCarthy. But the amount of success was great. And frankly, I think kind of going all in on veteran talent the last handful of years when they probably should have torn it down and rebuilt things in Pittsburgh. And it sure seems like that's more of a Pittsburgh thing because they're going with Mike McCarthy. There's the idea of Aaron Rodgers that's there. But it speaks to the bigger picture, and that is there's a familiarity with the NFL coaching hiring process that is the problem. It's two levels of familiarity. One, and this has plagued the NBA as well, the retread coach. I mean, how often in the NBA do we see Doc Rivers and Ty Lue popping up as head coaches? I mean, it seems like they're like your recycled de jour coaches in the NBA. We're getting this now in the NFL, where rather than stepping outside the box, they're going back to mediocre NFL coaches. Look, I get it. If you're in a spot where you go, hey, we want John Harbaugh, by and large, proven success. We want Sean McDermott or Mike Tomlin, by and large, proven success. You could argue it was time for a change with all of those AFC coaches. And that you could argue that they could be better or at least have similar success in their next stops. Sometimes the second act is good, and both parties benefit from firing a coach. I know we discussed that a couple of weeks ago. But sometimes you're saying you're going, we're going with that retread? Robert Saleh, minority. But, and granted, it's probably hard to hold anything against what happens with the Jets. See Sam Darnold or hear Sam Darnold starting at 2 p.m. this Sunday in Super Bowl 60 right here on the VTRN Sports app and all of our spoken word platforms on the Virginia Talk Radio Network. But the familiarity problem in the NFL hiring is not, I don't think, TJ, race-based. I think the lack of racial diversity is a byproduct of this. But I think it's more the fact that two things jump out. They seem to want retread coaches because they're comfortable with them, even if it's mediocre results. And the hot offensive mind. And for every hot offensive mind that is Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan, people often want the cast off from that particular tree and fail to see that maybe thinking outside the box isn't the worst idea. Maybe going with a defensive mind isn't the worst idea. Both teams in the Super Bowl are defensive coordinators that turned into head coaches. One head coaching experience. And again, I think it was different. I think we're seeing now Tennessee's the one that had a problem, not Mike Vrabel. But I think this is a real issue in the NFL. And it stinks that there are 10 head coaching vacancies in the NFL and that 9 of them were not filled by minority candidates. And I'm not saying all of them should have, but the clear lack of diversity is obvious. The only one is Robert Saleh, who's of Lebanese descent with the Tennessee Titans. But I don't think it's as much the NFL owners who are going, we hate black people, as much as it is NFL owners who go, we want what we think is sexy and we can sell to the fan base. And often it's I'm going to use air quotes for this part, coach with a resume, or a coach that is a quote, again, quote unquote, hot offensive mind.
No, I agree. I think the one minority coach you could have considered as a sexy pick is Brian Flores, but I think a lot of teams want to stay away because a lot of people remember a couple years ago he sued the NFL because he wasn't being hired, and then the Dolphins, the front office, and he had a problem because he didn't want to tank, and they did. So I think that's probably the sexy. Maybe Vance Joseph. That's a name I've heard a lot too, offensive coordinator of the Broncos. But I think the Giants had their eyes set on Harbaugh. Nobody else. I think.
And I don't fault that one in a vacuum. He provides structure and stability. Had it in Baltimore, Giants have been kind of a mess. I get that.
Absolutely. I agree. And I think if Mike Tomlin had wanted to go back to coaching, he would have a job right now. But I think Mike Tomlin wants to step away.
I agree with that. I think he wants to take a moment to recalibrate. I would also say this much. I think if either McDermott or Tomlin wanted to go to Arizona or the Raiders, they would have gone there. And maybe you can convince me the Raiders have some value because Fernando Mendoza, I don't think he's the most athletically gifted quarterback, but I get why he will be the number one pick for the Raiders. Breaking news here. And, the fact that it's a cerebral-based position, I think there's some value to that. The Saints were a mess before Peyton and Breeze arrived, and you could argue they've still had their mess in terms of ownership, but the fact that they had the right coach and quarterback in place and started winning, inevitably, you get out of the way. The Cardinals had it when Kurt Warner was there. People often forget that they have, by and large, been the mess of a franchise, but when he was there, the Bidwell family and the management got out of the way and let that thing marinate the way that it normally should.
Yeah, with Carson Palmer, too, later after. A lot of people forget Palmer had a decent career at Arizona, too.
Got him to the Super Bowl. They almost won it.
Yeah, exactly. So I just think, I think right now it's just about what's the sexy pick, what's going to draw the fan base the most. Like you said, I thought you put it perfectly. There's no more sugar you can add to this cake. I mean, that's the perfect way to put it.
I think it's a great way to describe it. And again, it's the thought process or lack thereof that counts when you're talking about the NFL and the Rooney Rule. I don't know if there's a way you can change this up because owners are smart enough to where they can go through the sham candidates and go through the interviews. And I'll give Pittsburgh the benefit of the doubt. Not that I like the Mike McCarthy hire, but they went out of their way to get Mike Tomlin and kept him around a lot longer than the fan base normally would have wanted. And they have championed that in their practice, and they had Brian Flores. They were the first to give him a lifeline after his suit against the NFL. So there is that element to it. But here's the other thing. Have you noticed a lot of these teams that struggle with coaches, and I think to a large extent don't really follow the actual finding the best coach in the spirit of the Rooney Rule? They're often the same teams that are picking head coaches, and why are we it stinks that more African-American coaches aren't getting hired, but why do people act all surprised out there that it's the same franchises, the Raiders, the Cardinals, the Browns, the Jets, those franchises that, yes, we can sit there and go, their process is stupid because it doesn't, sorry to my kids who are listening, I said a bad word that I'm not supposed to. We try not to say stupid, just like we try not to say hope here in the fast lane. But it is a flawed process. But the other thing is the level of outrage or fake outrage when the reality is, why are we surprised that these franchises that keep violating the Rooney Rule and really only go through the motions are often the same franchises that continually swing and by and large miss on these coaching candidate options that are out there.
Oh, for sure. The Cardinals especially. They've just been hit or miss. I don't know what it's going to take for the Cardinals to go back to what they were. Dare I say the 70s when they were the NFC East team?
Oh my goodness, you're bringing me way back into the day.
Man, but that's what it feels like. I can't remember the last time the Cardinals felt like they had any relevance was when they stood in the way of the Panthers in 2015 to go to the Super Bowl, and Larry Fitzgerald gave them heck to get there.
Yeah, I mean, that was the Carson Palmer team you were talking about, the one with the Panthers where they almost got there. And then obviously Kurt Warner's was the one that almost won the Super Bowl when Pittsburgh got that championship for Mike Tomlin. But this is the reality is there are organizations that are out there, and I'm not saying it's going to work out all the time. It might have run its course with like Todd Bowles in Tampa Bay, for example. The Buccaneers, though, gave it an honest opportunity with him. And you can argue Bruce Arians departing when he did was designed to give Bowles an opportunity. Yeah. I think maybe there's a ceiling there, but I think also maybe there's a ceiling on what Baker Mayfield can do in terms of bringing you something at quarterback.
I'd argue the Jets didn't give Bowles a fair shot.
Have the Jets given
Bowles never?
Have the Jets given anybody a reasonable and fair shot?
Fair point.
I mean, man. Sam Darnold is proof point for this. It's New York. We have to get rid of them. Let's be impatient. How has that ever turned out well? I mean, it's comical. I mean, all the volume of retreads that are out there. And that's the truth to it. There are openings where Buffalo has not had one very often. They've had a lot of stability. Levy, McDermott are the most obvious examples. But for all the flaws that the Pagula family you can point to, the Sabres are a glaring example if you follow the NHL. Yeah. You know, by and large, they've had some level of stability. Pittsburgh has had stability. I know the Giants have kind of swung and missed a good amount lately, but they've had their elements of stability with Coughlin, with Fossil, even to an extent. Harbaugh, I think, will provide that for the Giants. And so I get that thought process. It's more for me when you look at, like I mentioned earlier, you want to criticize the Rooney Rule. Right. You can also look at the volume of teams out there where it's the same thing again and again. And they're either going retread coach, hot offensive mind, retread coach, hot offensive mind. And it's usually the same franchises that are making the same poor decisions. And oftentimes they are quick to get rid of a good coach or a good player because they don't have enough patience.
And I'd say the Rooney Rule, as far as we're talking about the Steelers here, I think they go with Mike McCarthy because they like the old style of football. And Mike McCarthy is, as a Cowboys fan who knows this, old style football. I think the Steelers wanted to stick with that. Thus why Mike McCarthy, the biggest blindside hire this offseason.
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable one. I mean, you know, Buffalo, I get it. You know, he was going to be, if you got rid of Sean McDermott, you almost had to get an offensive coordinator or an offensive type coach.
I would have gone back to Brian DeBall.
So from a tactical standpoint, yes. From a leadership standpoint, that's where I go with the head scratcher. And I'm not saying Joe Brady is the right candidate.
Yeah.
But I get the line of thinking there. You know, Dayball and McDaniel, for different degrees, strike me as the smart offensive minds, but I don't know if they quite have the EQ, the emotional quotient portion down to be a head coach.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the reason Brian D made sense in Buffalo is because you wanted Allen involved in the pick. Allen has a great relationship with him, and he's offensive minded. He knows Allen's style. That's why Brian D came first to my mind. But I'm excited to see what he does as an OC in Tennessee.
Sure. And look, you're going to get some franchises that I think legitimately go through this process on a more legitimate basis. But there are others where you're just sitting there going, okay, it sure seems like they had their guy in mind and they were just going to do whatever it took to get to the point where they hire the guy that they had in mind. And that's where the spirit of the Rooney Rule is a problem. And again, each individual spot in a vacuum may not be problematic, but a lot of the time you sit there and go, for one, like I said, same franchises going through the same charade again and again. Why are we surprised? But also, it's a cumulative amount for the NFL. And I don't think that every coaching hire is going to work out that is a minority. I'm glad we're past the Eric Bieniemy is the token hire that everyone thinks should have gotten it, because I think we kind of saw in Washington. And granted, though, the last year of the Ron Rivera era was an example of how, maybe it was kind of already smoldering and that was a tough situation. But if you go Google him, his baggage is not very pristine. But from a pure can he do the job standpoint, That's where I would like to see more coaches get that opportunity, because if you're not the hot offensive mind, and for every obvious hot offensive mind like a Bang Johnson, there are a bunch of others where it seems like, are they really that hot? Or is it just they're, quote, close to the tree, end quote. LaFleur in Green Bay, and kind of debates about where he is. Zach Taylor in Cincinnati as well. Not saying they've done horrible, but would a culture building coach really change the elevation? Is the culture building approach of Todd Bowles in Tampa Bay, for example, and where he's topped out, kind of a divisional round coach, is it all that different from Cincinnati, Super Bowl year aside, where they almost won it with Joe Burrow? Or is it all that different from Green Bay, where they're all they're not quite conference championship or Super Bowl teams? And in that spot, would you rather have the hot offensive coach, but it kind of fizzles out after a while? Or would you rather have the guy that at least provides a level of stability from a cultural standpoint? And if you can get the right quarterback in place, great. And frankly, have the right offensive coordinator, maybe you can actually figure some things out and have some stability over a longer period of time. Speaking of the NFL, speaking of dark clouds in different levels, there are more of those to discuss when we come back in the Fast Five at 5-ish. Then we will get into the weeds on the Virginia Tech Lady Hokies. I mean, let's be real here. The Virginia Cavaliers and Virginia Tech men's basketball teams kind of went predictable the last week or so. We'll explain that. Virginia Tech, they're off until NC State this coming Saturday. Game 2 of our Saturday slate after Syracuse UVA. We don't carry all Virginia games, but we get a couple here and there. 11:30 airtime Saturday. Virginia tonight, they have a game, another one, kind of a ho-hum against Pitt. The how long will Jeff Capel be coaching Pitt Panther basketball game? So that's why we'll touch on the Lady Hokies and who's as well. But all of that when we come back in the fast lane, and then Jon Manson from AseaofRed.com around 5:40 today on the VTRN Sports app, and Ask That Smart Speaker, open VTRN Sports.
Mark Dalton here with Terry Volkswagen. Get ready to fall head over heels for the perfect VW SUV. One size doesn't fit all, though, and that's why Volkswagen has an SUV for everyone. From the compact and affordable Volkswagen Taos to the tech-packed Tiguan and the spacious Volkswagen Atlas. No matter which one fits your lifestyle, you'll love the comfort, performance, and safety. Stop by Terry Volkswagen on Forest Road in Lynchburg or check us out online at terrybw.com. Terry Volkswagen. You'll love our cars.
People ask all the time, who the heck is Low Cost Airlines? Well, we're not just one airline. When you're talking to us, you're talking to everyone. We are the discount supermarket for all airline tickets. Plus, we have all the airlines and always have the best prices. American, Delta, United, plus all the specialized international airlines and a lot more. And we make it easy. We guarantee you'll talk to a live human in 60 seconds. You can have the rate you need and have your trip booked in 5 minutes. Now, how cool is that? And remember, when you're talking to us, it's like talking to every single airline available with one fast phone call. All you need to do is call and find the best prices to fly wherever it is you want to go. So are you ready? Call Low Cost Airlines right now. 800-452-1278. 800-452-1278. 800-452-1278. That's 800-452-1278.
Are you tired of static? Wish you could take your favorite Virginia radio stations with you wherever you go? Then you need to discover the power of streaming. That's right. You can now easily listen to the Virginia Talk Radio Network for insightful discussions and local news.
From the VTRN News Center, I'm Bill Trefiro.
And groove to classic hits on Rewind 1039. All from your smartphone, tablet, or computer. No more fiddling with the dial. Just download your favorite radio app. Search for Virginia Talk Radio Network or Rewind 1039, and you're ready to go. Stay connected with your community.
Good morning. This is Kimberly McBroom in the WDBJ 7 newsroom with our Virginia Talk Radio Network news update.
And enjoy the music you love anytime, anywhere. Streaming the Virginia Talk Radio Network and Rewind 1039. It's that easy. Virginia Talk Radio Network. Rewind 1039. Now streaming.
Check out every game of March Madness on VTRN Sports. 93.3 FM, 1320 AM. Open VTRN Sports on your smart speaker and stream on the VTRN Sports app.
Hey, this is Virginia Tech analyst and former Hokies tight end Mike Burnham. You're listening to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle. Join the chat at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
We have a lot to get to, but we have a lot of time. until Jon Manson from CFRed.com joins us. By a lot, I mean like 15-ish minutes, because he'll join us around 5:40, 5:45 or so today here in the Fast Lane. He'll talk Liberty University. We talk the other Liberty right now to kick off.
It's time for Fast Five at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kinda ish. Let's start with number 5.
Liberty High School. They have tapped Corey Mason to be the acting head coach following the tragic and sudden passing of John McSweeney last week. They are slated to return to the court Friday at home against Brookville. I give all the props in the world to the Liberty Minutemen, to the boys on that team, the coaching staff and the support staff around them and their parents and the entire school and the athletic department. And let's be real, the community of Bedford as well, for rallying around Liberty during this. Their victory is just giving it a shot. However things go, the victory for them is giving them a shot. This is the ultimate, I know as a bigger picture program, Liberty's had some sudden hires. In fact, Darryl Robertson in football was kind of a late hire with the departure of Chris Watts. And then obviously Robertson's replacement was late with Brad Womack. So the administration there actually has got some experience in terms of how to guide through the idea of a sudden coaching change. Obviously, there's an unprecedented difference and a tragic difference between the football changes, which are just business decisions, if you will, versus the basketball change with the tragic death in midseason from John McSweeney. But give a lot of praise to that community out there. The victory for Liberty, and I think this is the ultimate thing worth remembering, is the fact that they are giving it an effort right now. And Corey Mason's in a very interesting spot where I don't think you can really judge him particularly negatively, but even maybe not full body of work based on what happens the remainder of the year. Although I will say this, just keeping that team together and organized, focused, galvanized, having the right level of intensity and effort, and playing with purpose and passion. The results may vary, I get that. But having that attitude is the number one objective for him. And focusing on playing to the best of your ability while understanding that there is a lot of weight going forward. Corey Mason is judged as much, if not more, and should be judged much more on the emotional quotient portion and what he provides Liberty basketball than the win-loss perspective, even as talented and gifted as that team has performed up to this point.
Yeah, and he's been with this program for 3 years, coach under McSweeney, head coach of JV. So he's got experience with his kids, and I think this is the hire they needed to get through this tough time.
It is. And, there are times where you can do comprehensive reviews and comprehensive reevaluations. That's off-season stuff. Right now, it is doing the best you can by the team you have right now and knowing this is a blessing, but that community is going to rally around Liberty. We've had some great feedback. Please keep it coming. Fast Lane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, if you want to chime in with anything more. By the way, weather is delayed high school basketball. Weather is also delayed NASCAR, the Clash, set to take place tomorrow, 6 p.m. at Bowman Gray Stadium down in North Carolina. But it has been a bear of a challenge for NASCAR to get this race in. It was supposed to take place Sunday. Weather obviously moved that to this Wednesday. The heat races, the qualifying races have all been rescheduled as well. For all of NASCAR's blessings last year with inclement weather, not dodging them and not delaying a race or not postponing a race once last year, it's happening already for NASCAR. I will say this. If I'm NASCAR, I'd rather it happen right now when all the attention anyway has been and will continue to be on the Super Bowl, which you can hear 2 p.m. this coming Sunday on the VTR and Sports app and all of our talk platforms in Bedford, Lynchburg, and Gretna South Side on the Virginia Talk Radio Network. So if you're NASCAR, I'd rather get it out of the way with this than at any other particular time. I don't think you can judge attendance, much of anything with the Clash this year at Bowman Gray based on the fact that this weather has just thrown such a monkey wrench into things. By the way, speaking of the Super Bowl, something that comes before the Super Bowl, in fact, it comes tonight.
Number 3.
The Pro Bowl set to take place this evening right here, 8 p.m. on the VTR and Sports app. Hashtag because we have to. Look, we're delighted to partner with Westwood One. We have been very blessed to have a wonderful partnership with them, and hopefully we'll have more opportunities to partner with them in the coming months. But this is the one where, this is not a Westwood One decision. This is an NFL decision. I don't know what you can do, TJ, to salvage all-star games. the closest to any All-Star game that would ever capture my attention, there are two of them. One is the high school All-American game, named after a fast food chain that's not a partner, so I'm not going to mention their name in the fast lane, but it has golden arches. Just figure it out. The other one is the baseball All-Star game. The quality of play in that resembles quality effort. And in the high school All-Star game, where it's the college basketball freshman one-and-dones to be, maybe some of them will be there for a year, more than a year, but a lot of them are one-and-dones. Those type of players, even though it's a showcase, there's still a level of pride that plays out in the defense that you see on the hardwood compared to the NBA All-Star game. I don't know what you can do in contact or collision sports like hockey or the NHL. Why would I want to risk injuring myself in a collision sport in a game where I am not fighting for something going forward, either at the end of a challenging season like the NFL, or, and this is why you can't move the NFL's All-Star festivities to mid-season, but the NHL does it, and you don't get much of that either. I know, to me, I come for sports because of players performing to the best of their ability. And I would rather see them in the function of their team organization rather than the idea of an all-star cast coming together. The theory behind it has been great, but the reality behind it is it's not why I tune into sports. And so the lack of effort and the fact the players don't show interest is an indication that I just think it's tapped out into what you can put together as far as a product that will compel them to put forth any type of tangible, real effort.
No, I agree. The Pro Bowl just isn't what it used to be. And I'm just curious, what product can you create to not only get the players interested, but fans interested? And I'm not just talking about a fan saying, okay, I'm bored. Let me turn on the Pro Bowl. Nothing else good is on. I'm talking about a fan being like, I've got to watch the Pro Bowl. Sorry, honey. You got to watch the kids a little bit longer.
The last time I watched the Pro Bowl, and not to bring up morbid memories here in the fast lane, but it's going to come across. But seriously, the last time I watched it was my wife and I were on the couch, and it was the day that Kobe died in the plane crash. And so I'm tuning in because the TMZ report came first on social media back when social media was moderately less toxic. It's been that way for a while. But the social media report came in, and so I tuned into the Pro Bowl, not to see the Pro Bowl, but to see the reaction of the people on set. And at what point it became obvious that even though they had not talked about it, that someone had planted in the ear of the studio hosting team for ESPN that Kobe was involved in a plane crash and believed to have been killed, which obviously we know ultimately was sadly proven to be true. And that's the only reason why. And it's not necessarily a morbid. It's me in sports media going, you can start to see the ticks and the signs in facial disposition, body language. I'm talking about it because I have to and it's my job, but clearly I know something more tragic has gone on, but we're not authorized to say it. And just seeing that unfold was as the media nerd in me is going, how do they handle that in case I'm ever in one of those situations? And I pray to God that continues to be the case, that I have not been in one, but you just never know when it might actually arise. And so because of that, that's why. That's the only reason. And I didn't even tune into the Pro Bowl that year because of the quality of the product or lack thereof, much less any other year. To me, skills competition, it's kind of tampered down because it's not really a reflection of your skill at the peak of your job. The Odell Beckham catch with the Giants is an example of this. And again, he got way more mileage than he deserved to off that catch. I think he was a good receiver, but he's not all pro, can't miss like that catch would have made you believe. But that was in the heat of the moment against the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. That's different than you tried to recreate that play in a flag football setting where all the other chaotic elements are not unfolding to make it as spectacular of a play. And same thing with dunks or contested threes in an NBA game, or wicked wild shots in an NHL game, or big home runs in a baseball game, or strikeouts on the big stage. Yeah. The tension and the surrounding chaos and the ability to perform under that is part of what makes those moments appealing, and you can't manufacture that no matter how much you try, even for monetary purposes, in an all-star game setting and festivity. Meanwhile, speaking of tension-filled moments in the heat of pressure,
number one,
Elena Rybakina, Carlos Alcaraz, both winning the women's and men's Australian Opens, respectively. I know this isn't a big limb to jump, but Rybakina has now won 2 Grand Slams. The belief that she will win 4 in a row, or could win 4 in a row, with the amount of baggage that historically has followed her around, especially with her coach. Stefano Vukov, who is, just Google Elena Rybakina coach. There's some potential unique relationships that may or may not have been beyond the physical dynamics of coaching, but other physical elements that could also have been involved in their relationship. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I'm not so sure that that's a healthy relationship, and I believe that they're going to be able to jungle that consistently over a period of time. It seems more like a peaks and valleys relationship. Plus, there are legitimately other challengers, and frankly, the best 2 out of 3 format in women's tennis makes it such that there is a greater propensity for you to have a bad day and not have enough time to recover, which is why it is just harder for a women's tennis player to win the calendar slam or even win a high volume of consecutive slams. Meanwhile, I absolutely see a path to Carlos Alcaraz. He's got 2 legitimate challengers in the men's game right now. One is Novak Djokovic, who I don't think was ever really in danger, even though he won the first set, of beating Carlos on Sunday. Carlos was the better player, was always on his racket. Once Carlos settled down and figured things out, and frankly, Carlos's greatest strength now has become the fact that he has learned to play a disciplined style when it's necessary. For as much as he employs the drop shot and has a free-flowing, get the crowd into it, fun attitude, which makes him such a great watch. He also has shown, Sinner in the U.S. Open, Djokovic in the Australian Open finals, that he can go into a lockdown mode where it is more disciplined. That makes him more deadly than all the other athletic skill sets because we all know those natural gifts are there. But he's won the last 2 Grand Slams. He has already won, in consecutive years, I might add, the French Open and Wimbledon. Will he get the calendar slam this year? He's 7-1 odds. I don't quite like that when, if you just parlay, or I should curse for a second here, when you parlay the results of, just the odds of Carlos as he's listed for each of those tournaments, it's closer to like 10-1 or 12-1. So the listed value of 7-1 is not a great proposition for Carlos to get it. Now, I think he could. I'm not putting it past him, but Sinner is the other logical challenger. Do I think Carlos could win and should probably be expected to win at least 2 this year? Sure. Could he win 3 this year? Absolutely. Could he win 4? I don't put it past him. And I may throw a bet down because I am so infatuated by Carlos. But the reality of Carlos Alcaraz is there's also this other element, which is when you've got that many challengers, again, all it takes is one bad day. And we've seen it before in the heyday of guys like Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, and others, that even when they won multiple Grand Slams in a year, it's hard to get to 4 because if there's another challenger, that challenger just needs to be better than you on one particular day. And it is hard to match that same level every single day, even as gifted as Carlos is, and even as few challengers as there are right now to him in the men's game. Meanwhile, here in the fast lane, when we return, we'll get to Jon Manson from AsiaRed.com. But we want to get into the weeds for just a second. The Virginia Tech men's basketball, Virginia Tech women's basketball, and UVA women and UVA men are in drastically different spots, which we can get into right now as we get into the weeds. In particular, the result of that big game Sunday you heard on the VTRN Sports app with the Lady Hokies knocking off the Lady Who's in an almost wire-to-wire fashion.
The haters say we get into the weeds. They may even say we get into the weed.
Smoke weed every day.
Nah, we love getting into the weeds to discuss some cool sports details here in the Fast Lane.
So part of the reason why we do touch on women's sports here in the Fast Lane, we just did with the Women's Australian Open and talking some women's tennis. And I think people think just women's basketball, it's the only form of women's sports worth discussing. We touch on softball. Dr. Dot Richardson, a guest, often with us. We mentioned her. We love having her on, by the way, because it's springtime. So you get a little more time to give her that extra level of coverage. And we've done it before with Virginia Tech softball and baseball. Evan Hughes was on Trey Lyle's show, The Morning Warm-Up, today.
And guess what? We keep
at The Morning Warm-Up and VTR and Sports on Facebook Live and YouTube, or The Morning Warm-Up, however you consume podcasts.
The point is we do like women.
We do. We do. And we will cover it when the timing is right. And frankly, I think the timing is right now, in part because if you look at the last week and change, I think the biggest game in basketball was Virginia Tech women knocking off Virginia in the Lady Who's on Sunday. Virginia and the Lady Who's look like they are a team that, I'm not saying they're solidified in the NCAA women's basketball tournament, but they have played their way into being a tournament team. It looks like they have taken a step forward, as many expected they should have, and I think is deserved to put the pressure on Coach Mox this year. Not getting the upper echelon wins in the ACC, but they are right there. And Virginia Tech, we vilified them. the loss to Miami. They went and got drubbed at Louisville, but since then, they won 7 in a row. And some of the attention right now, let's be real, TJ, is on the fact that, again, we touched on men's basketball. The Virginia men are in the middle of this kind of sleepy stretch, literally. They had to go to Notre Dame and Boston College. Basketball atmospheres. They won those, not necessarily convincing, double overtime at Notre Dame. They came back, erased the deficit, won by 7, hit the magic 73-point mark against BC on Saturday. And then they've got Pitt at home tonight. How long will Jeff Capel be the coach of Pitt is probably the overarching storyline for that one. And Syracuse, maybe the same thing with Red Archery and the Orange come in to JPJ at noon this coming Saturday. So this is the stretch for Virginia men. I mean, we could get into the weeds, but they need to win games. They are, it's not always pretty, but they're winning the games. And the Virginia Tech men's basketball team, I mean, the Duke game kind of unfolded the way I expected to. They fell down early. They fought back, got it to within 6, but just didn't quite have the horses to ever get over the hump. And ultimately, Duke pulls away late and wins 72-58. And then they get a week off before NC State this coming Saturday on the road, a game that you can hear right after Syracuse UVA on the VTRN Sports app. So the men right now, TJ, right now, I would just say it feels like they kind of are where they are, at least at this juncture for Virginia and Virginia Tech, which is why the women are so compelling. And the fact that what we saw was really impressive from Virginia Tech's women's basketball team this past Saturday. One of them is just the fact that they buckled down and showed a level of grit and determination that frankly was reason to be questioned. Maybe not in the Louisville game, which was the last loss, but the one before that where they blew the lead to Miami and lost in Castle Coliseum. That's one where you're going, can they show that level of grit? They don't always have the biggest team in terms of height and size, but you want to see that extra component. And Megan Duffy really praised that after the win against UVA on Saturday.
I'm just extremely proud and grateful for the grit and effort they showed tonight. Hard-nosed, physical game. I thought they were just relentless with staying in the moment, fighting for each other, fixing things as we went. Just overall, just love the grit of this team.
And the thing I could say this about Virginia Tech, and I think you could say this about the men and the women, TJ, is it's not always been pretty, but they both kind of hit those lulls. Virginia Tech men had lost 3 out of 4, with those losses being just last second kind of gut-wrenching losses. And how did they snap out of it? But they got aggressive and they started driving to the bucket. And it wasn't pretty. You have to make free throws. It makes the game close. You're sacrificing the 3-point attempt, even if it's not going in, versus just getting points, finding it, seeing the ball go in. And the Lady Hokies did the exact same thing this past Saturday. Carly Wenzel, 20-plus free throws. That's impressive. And it's not the only one. They shot, again, when you get over 30 free throws, and we've seen it for the Lady Hokies and the men's team, that's a really impressive thing. And Carly Wenzel discussed how important that was.
I love that I was able to keep my poise and take the hits, but I'm not happy with my percentage. But that's all mental. It's something you can't really just lean on and focus on too much. I'll make them next game. I'll make them in practice on Tuesday. So I'm grateful, but I wish it went a little bit different.
Well, sure. I mean, that part's understandable, but the fact for Virginia Tech is that's been one thing that they've relied on in women's and men's basketball is when it's not been great, you go to the rim. Wenzel drew 13 fouls. That is insane. Like, she is almost essentially, if you add one more and you split it over the half, 14, 7 and 7.5. She is literally responsible for getting the Lady Hokies into the bonus. Like, literally responsible. That's impressive. 20 foul shots, one shy of the team total, Virginia. 16 of 21. And 21 is not a bad percentage for Virginia. But it's where Virginia Tech really elevated it. Not to mention the fact that, Mackenzie Nelson also went 8 for 12 from the charity stripe. 2 players getting you above the 30 free throw attempt mark. That is an impressive thing. And it goes into this idea of learning to stay aggressive.
I think we've been learning that throughout the year. And, we've had a lot of different moments, whether that was in non-conference or, we've been in some games where, we were down and came back and won, like Clemson. We've had a couple where similar to, like the Miami game where we were up and kind of lost the lead. And the more experiences that these women can be put in, the more they're going to get confidence. And we try to prepare as hard as we can for every situation. I'm sure they're probably annoyed by that sometimes, but at the end of the day, when they go to the showtime, like you want them to be able to, be confident in their abilities, whether that's making free throws, whether it's rallying around each other to get a defensive stop or execute a play. And
yes, rallying around to get a defensive stop, to be aggressive. It's the right mentality and mindset. And when a team starts to buy into that, that's where you can snap out of it. The 3-point, you can get back to that, but having that is so crucial and knowing the right level of balance for that. Some teams already have that. Others have to learn to develop it. What Liberty does, it's impressive. Liberty men. And we'll get to that in a moment. But they've had that because they have a core. When you're trying to develop that, I think it's one of the easiest things to do is you get them to the rim. You see the ball go in. You also get some free throws, but it also develops the right mindset of your players that can carry over the course of a season.
And I'll say this, BT to lose their head coach 2 years ago and to be able to get into the spot where they rebuild instantly, and now they're in the middle of the pack in the ACC to where they can be competitive at any sort of point. I truly think that's the beauty of the athletics. That's the beauty of head coaches like Coach Duffy, able to come in and keep the program going when people expect it to fall.
Yeah, it is. And that's a big part because Kenny Brooks was great at Virginia Tech. The loss was painful. I get it. Kentucky's a really good team right now. And when you're Virginia Tech, every time you see that, you're going, what could have been if that was only us? But obviously, they need to get their athletic department aligned, and getting football prioritized was important. I think you would trade all that off to have James Franklin as your head coach and finally have the alignment that appears to be there. So I think you're in the right spot if you're Virginia Tech with all of this and weathering the storm right now. But for Virginia, that's the next step. Virginia, they've shown progress, but that game Saturday, which is why it's a barometer, is a big key to that. Meanwhile, when we return to the fast lane, I don't know if you can even call it progress. It's just steady as it goes. Still undefeated in Conference USA basketball play. Jon Manson will discuss that in and of itself when he joins us in the fast lane from AseaofRed.com. Talking Liberty Flames next on the VTRN Sports app, and ask that smart speaker, open VTRN Sports.
Here we grow again at the Sheeler Motor Mile. It's here, the all-new Motor Mile Chevrolet and Buick in Radford. More brands, more selection, and the same exceptional service you expect from a trusted community partner. Whether you're shopping Chevrolet or Buick, you'll find quality, value, and a team that puts you first. From rugged trucks and SUVs to stylish cars and family-friendly vehicles, the Motor Mile has something for everyone. With straightforward pricing and top dollar for your trade, there's no better place to buy. Bring us your trade, newer, older, paid off or not, and see why your car is worth more on a Motor Mile. Plus, with more inventory arriving daily, now is the time to shop the Motor Mile. Sheeler owns the finance company and makes getting approved for credit simple and easy on the Motor Mile. Flexible financing options for every budget to get you on the road fast. Experience the Motor Mile at 3 convenient locations: Christiansburg, Radford, and Pulaski. For over 50 years, we've got Southwest Virginia covered. The all-new Motor Mile Chevrolet and Buick in Radford. Certified friendly staff. No games, no gimmicks. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at MotorMileChevroletBuick.com.
Hey, Hokie fans, are you still getting your Hokie sports news from other outlets, or even worse, the newspaper? Well, you're missing out. Tech Sideline has assembled the largest and most talented team to ever cover Virginia Tech athletics. If you want Hokie sports coverage that is second to none and will make you the smartest fan at the tailgate, subscribe to TechSideline.com for just $12 a month or $120 a year. Tech Sideline, all Hokie, all the time, period. Subscribe today at TechSideline.com.
A winning sports team doesn't use the same game plan for every opponent. The same is true for your personal injury case. Hi, I'm Randy Trost with Trost Law. Since 1982, our strategy starts with a team meeting between you and our team. We'll learn about your case and craft a custom game plan. Then we'll fight for you every step of the way to get a winning outcome. We hope you never need our services, but if you do, we're one phone call away at 777-HURT or trostlaw.com.
Hi, I'm Chuck from Aquatrack Adventures in Salem. The Virginia Talk Radio Network and InsaneRadioDeals.com have helped our company grow by sharing our company's message throughout Central and Southside Virginia. The gift cards and experiences sold on InsaneRadioDeals.com have brought us many new customers. If you're a business that wants to grow with a message that resonates and gets results, I highly recommend InsaneRadioDeals.com and the Virginia Talk Radio Network. Simply put, it works.
A cool food concept sparks curiosity. What about two concepts at one restaurant? That's even better. Oliver's on Rivermont is Lynchburg's first multi-concept restaurant. Pick items from the traditional Oliver's menu, the 801 Raw Bar menu, or mix and match. And you'll appreciate the consistency of Oliver's new kitchen and serving staff. Two cool concepts in one. Only available at Oliver's on Rivermont.
Looking for everything happening in and around Central Virginia that used to be in the morning paper? Start your day at the lynchburgportal.com. Get the latest news updates from Bill Trevero, plus up-to-date weather from VTRN's own in-house meteorologist, Matt Ferguson. So you're always in the know before you head out the door. Want to listen on the go? Stream classic hits on Rewind 103.9. Get breaking local news on WIQO, or catch the best sports talk and play-by-play on VTRN Sports, powered by ESPN Radio, all right from the portal. Looking to save? Check out Insane Radio Deals for great local discounts, or explore local podcasts featuring the voices and stories that make our community special. Plus, connect with local businesses through the Lynchburg Business Alliance directory and stay in the loop on the latest events from Lynchburg Tourism. It's all right here. Local news, weather, sports, deals, and more at the lynchburgportal.com. Your gateway to everything Lynchburg.
Hi, this is Zach Mackey, the voice of Virginia Tech men's basketball. You're listening to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle. Join the chat at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
I mean, I guess you could say start at the bottom and then work your way up to the top. That's how we come back in to the Fast Lane. And more importantly, that's how we discuss the Liberty Flames schedule coming up this week in men's basketball with Jon Manson from ASeaofRed.com, who joins us here in the Fast Lane. Starting at the bottom, they go to Delaware on Wednesday evening. Then going to the top, tied for second, Liberty is at the top alone. They have Missouri State this coming Saturday in a game at 2 p.m. that will not only feature myself over in Go Home to Bel Air, but also my twins are getting acquainted with Go Home to Bel Air. Because yes, as a dad, his wife's going to be out of town, I got a couple of tickets for my kids to go to the game. I did get one for the sitter as well. She is a Liberty student and loves baseball and basketball, and we are forever grateful and thankful to have her in our life. We'll see how that goes, but it can't be any more worse than other situations. So Jon Manson of ASeaofRed.com is with us in the Fast Lane. John, first of all, you've been warned that distractions galore may be on your plate this coming Saturday if my kids start bugging us.
Well, I was about to say, it sounds like we're going to be in for a lot of action on Saturday over at Bel Air. Are they going to be joining us up on Media Row? Or are they going to be in their ticketed seats? Or we don't know yet. The last option. We do not know. I am not going to lie, though, to get my usher on for a second. I must confess that the tickets that I got are in eye shot of where we sit, so that if it looks like it's getting out of control and you see me quickly get up and walk with a very tense and stern look, you might know where I'm headed. Yeah, it'll be fun, and credit to Liberty. Shout out to Liberty's SID staff, led by Bill Smith for men's basketball, and I've had to do the same type thing on occasion. Have one or both of my daughters with me, and that they're very accommodating. I'm sure they will be for you as well this weekend.
Very much so. And you mentioned that Todd Whatmore has been the same for football. I've been in those spots, as have you, where you're trying to juggle being a present spouse and or parent, and you want to blend those two things together. I guess I'll go off and bring this point up now, John. We bring this up a lot when it comes to just the atmosphere at Liberty and the game excitement and everything else. How underrated is it, though, the fact that, first of all, you may get some people pushing the limits a little bit when it comes to tailgating and football. I'm not going to deny that maybe it happens from time to time, but relatively speaking, it is a very family-friendly atmosphere for all sports at Liberty, and it's such where, especially when you've got young kids like myself and like yours were not too long ago, you can feel pretty comfortable that they're going to be able to go there and not be exposed to some unnecessary behavior.
Oh, 100%. I mean, and you can't completely isolate kids, and it's probably not a good idea to completely isolate kids. And who knew that they would be tuning in to the Fast Lane with Ed Lane to get some parenting advice from Ed and John. But no, it's a great place to very family friendly environment, and around a lot of families, young families around the Liberty community, and it's great. I mean, I grow up going to sporting events all over the Southeast, ACC country. I'm sure you did similarly as well. And you didn't always run into those type of environments. And I've taken my kids to obviously a lot of Liberty events, but home events, but we've gone to a few road events as well too. And I forgot to forewarn them that the environment, opposing fans aren't always as friendly as the Liberty environment is, the Liberty bubble, if you will. So yeah, I mean, if you're a Liberty alum or just a sports fan that's a young family, I mean, I can't think of a better place to spend, if you like sports, to spend a Saturday afternoon or a Wednesday evening or whatever the case may be at a Liberty event. And there's tons of events at Liberty as well too, whether it's football, you got spring sports coming up, softball and baseball, and then, obviously men's and women's basketball, which, we're right in the heart of right now.
You teased it, and I am going to do the thing that might irritate some folks at Liberty. I'm going to hold off on asking about all the other environments for Liberty sports because we'll have plenty of time when spring sports arrive. Softball expected to be great once again. Baseball as well. They're kind of in the thick of a pretty loaded CUSA slate. And then there are some other fall sports even where you can take your kids and enjoy a good time. But basketball is the subject that we get to discuss. Are people taking for granted the fact this team is 10-0 over halfway through the Conference USA slate?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny that you said that. I actually had a very similar conversation with someone earlier today about that. And I think part of it is, Liberty lost, 3 or 4 games there in, what was that, late to early December, or late November to early December, with the trip down to Orlando over Thanksgiving week. Lost 2 games there, and then lost by 40, a humiliating loss, which we've talked about before, to the Wolfpack. And, just in that moment and coming off that 3 out of 4 game losing skid, it just was a deflating, week or two to be a Liberty Flames basketball fan, and especially with that, humiliating loss down in Raleigh. But since then the team has turned the page and they haven't lost since then. They've won 12 straight. I mean, going on almost 2 months without losing a game. Obviously went unblemished in the month of January, and it all started with that win at Dayton, which was a quad 1 win there for a little while. But the Flyers have struggled here recently, and I think they've dropped 3 straight. But Liberty has continued to turn the momentum on, and it's been this 12-game winning streak, this 10-0 start to Conference USA play that has this team, pushing up there to be considered. Again, we got, a whole month and a half left to go, so a lot of basketball to be played, but to be in the conversation, to be, where does this team, rank? Where can this team rank by the time the season's over as far as like some of the best teams Liberty basketball's ever had, which, probably most, if not all of them, have been under Coach McKay. And also, you're even more than that, talking about, a seed line, where can they get, a 12 seed is where you see them. Most bracketologists predicting the Flames right now. And then, could they get to an 11 seed if they, were to go unblemished in conference play, 20-0, which I think would be quite a lofty expectation and goal. But certainly, something you can think about when you start off 10-0, and then at-large chances. And we talked about that on our podcast last night. And I'm not sure if an at-large possibility is a real possibility for Liberty, but if they were to get to something like 30-4 and go 20-0 in the regular season in Conference USA, I think they would at least be in the conversation. Probably on the outside looking in, but at least in the conversation.
Jon Manson is at JC Manson and aseaofred.com or on Twitter to connect with him. We're at Fastlane, Ed Lane on all of ours, social media, wherever you listen to podcasts. Of course, the VTR and Sports app, as well as 93.3 FM, W227 BG Timberlake, 1320 AM, WVGM AM Lynchburg, and 730 AM, WMNA Gretna Danville Southside, as Jon Manson is with us here in the Fast Lane. And I heard you and your team talking about that on the A Sea of Red basketball podcast that just dropped within the last 24 hours. And I actually managed to get around to listening to it in the middle of snow days. So don't know how I pulled that miracle off today, John. But somehow I did. And you were bringing up that point. And y'all were discussing the NC State loss. And, if the game goes different, if there's anything else that Liberty could have done differently. I look at their 3 losses even. And, Towson is a team that's kind of in the back half of their conference. They're 9th place. Bradley's 5th in theirs or 4th in theirs. And those are the other losses for Liberty. Is it really about, well, if things went different in Raleigh, even if it was a close loss, or is it more the fact that if Liberty is always likely going to be a one bid league in Conference USA and has to approach it that way just because it's that difficult to get any of these other marquee opponents on the schedule?
Yeah, that's a great point, Ed. I mean, we could sit here and nitpick what Liberty has done and where they could have done better. And certainly, if you lose by 4 to NC State instead of 40, or if you beat both Towson and Bradley, you got a stronger case. But, at the same time, you're still going to be – I mean, look at Miami of Ohio. I mean, they've got, a similar type resume. I think Liberty's got a little bit of a better strength of schedule and maybe a couple of better wins than Miami, Ohio out of the MAC. But, I mean, they're undefeated and ranked in the top 25. And there's already been some conversations going on nationally about them. I mean, would they be on the right side of the bubble if they did not win the MAC tournament? And so I think Liberty would be in the same boat, even if Liberty, was undefeated or maybe just had the one loss to NC State by a respectable margin. It would still be a conversation. I don't think they would be a lock, and that's just part of life as a mid-major, part of life. And when you're outside of those top, high major conferences, the Power Four, and maybe a couple other high major basketball leagues that can routinely get multiple bids to the big dance, and part of it is it's out of your control. I mean, we talked about this with football in 2023 when Liberty made it to the Fiesta Bowl as a top-ranked G5 champion. A lot of it's out of your control. Like, what does your other competition do, and then what does the rest of your conference do? Like, Sam Houston's a team in Conference USA men's basketball this season that they've won 6 straight, and if they keep playing well, they could. Liberty's already won out there in Texas at Sam Houston. I mean, that could be a game that rises up to a quad 1 or quad 2 type win. And then Liberty and Sam Houston meet in the regular season finale, and Missouri State, another one. You mentioned that at the Open about, a game that Liberty plays this weekend. Sam Houston's already a top 100 team, so they're one that kind of, you can see the path for them to be, a top 60, top 70 type team if they can continue to string together wins. I think they won 6 in a row. So, but like I said, a lot of it has to do with, is there another team in your conference or multiple teams in your conference that, a win over them, whether home or away, would kind of be looked at as a good marquee win.
You've got a great article. It's Thoughts on What We've Learned Halfway Through Conference Play. What We've Learned is the official title at aseaofred.com from the Liberty Flames. John, I can't help but get the feeling in the back of my head that out of all the teams that are in that mix right now for Liberty, and they'll get another chance on the road against this team, but Jacksonville State with Ray Harper, kind of the pedigree of that program, and maybe it's because they always seem to, have a daunting way when it comes to the Liberty Flames, that's the one where I go, yeah, I'm not so sure about that one. Is that the one where you're sitting there going as well, if you're a Flames fan, or is there another team where you go, they might be the one that trips Liberty up, and if it happens, you hope and pray that it's in the regular season and not the conference tournament?
Yeah, I think Jacksonville State's definitely got to be on that short list of teams that you have to be concerned about if you're a Liberty fan and a team that could make a run there in Huntsville in the Conference USA tournament. And they're in the mix of those teams just behind Liberty. I think just behind. I mean, everybody's got at least 4 losses to Liberty 0. But they're in that mix there with 4 conference losses right now. And, they're a team that's kind of been a surprise in conference play. I mean, they really struggled, the Gamecocks I'm speaking of. They really struggled in their non-conference slate. But like a lot of the teams in college basketball and certainly in Conference USA, they had a lot of new faces. And Coach Harper's been able to blend them together, and they're kind of hitting their stride. But Sam Houston, I already mentioned them, but I feel like, that's the team that you really got to watch out for. I mean, they've got a couple of solid wins in their non-con, including at Oregon State, and also win over Wyoming. And like I said, they won 6 straight, and they're now in second place at 7-4 in the league play, and they haven't lost since they played Liberty back a few weeks ago at home. And again, a lot of newcomers and transfers that came in this season, and Chris Mudge has got that group playing really well. So I think Sam Houston's one I would watch out for, and Jack State I think deserves to be in that mix as well too. I think Kennesaw is another team to kind of keep an eye on as they continue to try to find their identity post the Simeon Cottle suspension. They've strung together a couple of wins here recently, and I think they'll be in the mix in Huntsville as well.
Yeah, that's the one to get my usher on once again. As I've mentioned before, that's the one, Kennesaw, where I was going, might be a real trendy dark horse pick in Conference USA. And thankfully, I didn't do anything with that one. And then the news broke about Simeon Cottle, and it totally changed the projection of where they are going forward. But it makes them kind of an unpredictable one. And there's a lot of that still remains to be seen over the course of the rest of this season. Jon Manson, we will follow your coverage over the course of it as well. Thank you for joining us today in the Fast Lane, going in a little bit of a different direction with us here. We appreciate it. We'll see you on the conference call later this week when Liberty's on the road at Delaware. And then I'll be over and look forward to seeing you this coming Saturday, even if I am spending half the time trying to corral 2 7-year-old boys.
Sounds good. Maybe a Chick-fil-A sandwich or two could help them out for at least a few minutes.
Right?
Oh,
I'm sure they'll be asking. No question about that.
Thanks for having me on, Ed.
It's our pleasure. Jon Manson with us here in the Fast Lane. We thank him. We thank TJ for hanging out a little bit longer than expected. Most importantly, we thank you for joining us whenever and however you do. Fast Lane, Ed Lane, however you listen to podcasts, and VTRN Sports on Facebook Live and YouTube, or the VTRN Sports app to listen to us as well. Thank you for joining us. Now, on to Freddie and Harry, already in progress.
You see, we're getting Giannis and John Morant tonight. That's what it sounds like. You see, this is